Hey guys, Thomas the Genie here, aka Mustached. I'm here to review the movie 8-Bit Christmas. If you end up enjoying this review, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also make sure to check out that description. In the second link, it'll head you over to my Patreon page. Any donations are greatly appreciated. And I'll remind you of the shilling at the end of the review. With that being said, let's get into 8-Bit Christmas. Haven't heard of it, but the Christmas time is around, so I figured, it's a Christmas movie that's coming up. Might as well watch it and then review it. There's a lot of Nintendo shilling in this, so I don't know what Nintendo's involvement is in making this movie, if it had any at all. I don't know. But the entire plot arrives around getting one. So the movie starts with a father talking with her daughter Anna about her wanting a new phone, or her own phone, as her dad currently has all her friends' numbers on his phone or whatever. So as they're making their way back home, he shows him that he obtained a Nintendo, the old cartridge in the classic Nintendo, and he, while they're playing, he tells a story about how he was much more, how his experience of wanting a Nintendo was even more obsessive or crazed than her wanting this phone. So she's doubtful of this. So he goes into a story, and we cut back between, throughout the movie, him being 11 years old and her interjecting once every so often, getting more and more invested as the story progresses. We've seen this type of story play out before. In fact, I just watched another movie that was very much akin of a story being told in this very fashion. But whatever. Point being that we see him as a younger kid, 11 years old. He makes his way to the rich kid's house named Timmy. He's the one kid in the entire neighborhood that has a Nintendo because he's super rich. And he introduces his set of friends. We meet Mikey, who's seen R-rated films apparently. Olsen, who has the glasses kid. Tammy, she's the smart one. And Teddy is her twin brother that is also twinned with her. And Jeff, who is a super duper liar. So they are all invited to his house. However, it's more just for him to show off that he even has a Nintendo, and they just, again, get to watch him as he primarily plays. But this gets the obsession going in the first place. So he goes back to his home, where he's trying to goat his mom to saying yes to getting a Nintendo, then attempting said thing with his dad. However, later on, during dinner, they both go over how video games make people lazy. And yeah, I get it. It's an easy tackle on video game players that we don't work out, even though in the current years, the girth of people who play video games has, I would dare say, has expanded beyond just the nerd who doesn't get to work out as often, or, that individual. I would say the power of video games has far, far exceeded that expectation, especially comparatively. So that might have been something that might have been true once upon a time, but looking at certain people who play video games now, you have people who are wrestlers who play video games. There's an entire channel, up, up, down, down. I'm keenly aware of a wrestler who plays video games from time to time. The idea again, that idea of it being a lazy thing is a thing that is far, far in the past, and we get a little bit more of that as a part of the plot in the movie as well. Anyway, so we cut back to him outside with his friends, and they're playing King of the Mountain as this tall, pretty much adult kid is like tossing them down, and everyone's trying to get up there for whatever reason. And then the next event that happens is the rich kid Timmy gets the power glove. Now apparently the power glove looks super cool, and he shows it off. And while he sneaks, our young protagonist sneaks into the house, all the other usual suspects are invited in, which are all of his friends anyway. And as he's trying to show off the power glove, he's actually losing to the girl, because she's the one playing, and she's the one holding the Nintendo controller, so they're playing some sort of weird generic fighting game, not one that they could gain access to, so it's just some bit-made video game for the movie, I guess. But she ends up winning, and he has a temper tantrum, and he does unrealistic kick, which manages to knock down the television. Apparently, it drops right onto the cat that they own, and the kids proceeding, after that, run away. So, during class, the kids talk about how the dog was severely injured. And then they learn from Jeff the Liar that there is a contest in order for them to win. And when they win, apparently they would win a Nintendo as a reward. So this reinvests our protagonist, and they have to sell these little flowery wreath things that you put on your door. So he's trying to attempt to do it this way. Meanwhile, the dad talks to his son about what it was like before having a Nintendo and being outdoors, and what you could accomplish. Again, just a little pushback of like, there are certain video games, I'm not going to even say a lot, but a few, that do have the whole workout, thing integrated into it, so there is that. It is expensive, at least from what I can remember, so, Anyway, the sister also wants a toy specific to her. She wants a Cabbage Patch Kid. Apparently those were super popular as well back then. As she said that she actually wanted a real sister, but she'll take having this toy instead, for the time being. However, when they're taken to the toy store, they see that it is sold out. However, our protagonist sees a Nintendo console set up at the store, so he's lured into it as it talks to him, quote unquote, making him walk towards it. The sister gets left behind as he starts to play and get invested in the game that he's playing. Some destruction game, I forgot what it was. Rampage, I believe the game was. I think that's a real game, I'm not sure. Rampage makes me think of the fighting game, though, the one with the fighting animals, for the Sega, instead of that one, so, I don't know, it's possible that they share the same name. Anyway, point being that the sister's outside talking to Santa as she's questioning, the typical things you would be suspicious of Santa for, that kind of talk. Um, so they get to him. The son realizes that he left his little. He had like a little retainer, so he had to get it back. So he manages to do so before the father finds out. So the two of them, the father and the son, they go to this car vendor, um, where they have him sell them a uh, knockoff Cabbage Patch Kid that, it's not exactly what she asked for, but results vary. Let's just say that for now. So, uh, the kids, as we cut back to our main character, wait to see what the Reeves have done, and our protagonist, Jake, wins the first place. However, instead of winning a Nintendo, he wins a bunch of books. And this is where we see the father from the rich kid talking to all the other parents about how video games are violent. Oh boy, do I love this one, because it came and went in waves, if anything. There was an era very early on where video games were violent, and that came during, particularly probably when Mortal Kombat came out. It's probably when the biggest wave of that hit, of like, oh, video games are violent, and, that whole aspect. And the wave eventually died down, and then it came back at some point, and it's died down again, which is no surprise, because there is actually no real correlation between those. That has been proven time and time again, or I should say a time ago, and people keep trying to bring that back whenever it's convenient, or certain people, I should say, which is always kind of annoying, since, again, the variety of different types of video games have expanded quite, exponentially. You have your little, island games, and all of your, like, cooking games, and your exercising games, and pure racing games, and, again, just sports in general games, and I'm trying to think of all the non-violent type of video games, and, it is quite an extensive list, but I'll leave it at that for now. Point being that whole thing has been, ruled around every so often. But for the sake of the movie, that is what is happening, so that is why they got nothing. So the kids are dejected at the roller rink, and they obtain these little cards, these little baseball cards, and they think to themselves, ah, yes, we can sell these instead and get our own money to when they're on a field trip, although it looks like the same mall that they went to prior, to buy a Nintendo. So they have that go down. So the kids work together after the main character, Jack, takes down the big bully, the practical adult child, by stepping up and asking for his stuff back. So he's able to get his money back to purchase said Nintendo. He manages, with some help of his friends, to get inside the store, purchase said Xbox, and run back. Unfortunately, due to his running, he slips on some ice that he was very careful of heading in, but heading back, he slips on the ice, and the Nintendo box slides right under where the bus is, and it crushes the Nintendo, and he freaks out. And also conveniently, the car guy that we saw earlier is there, and he has a sit down with the kid and talks to him about how, you have the whole meaning of Christmas kind of talk about, like, oh, I wanted this thing super bad, but then, I figured out, like, oh, it was all about family, family, family. Uh, so, uh, he gets that little connection, and then we cut to Christmas where he almost thinks he's gonna get an Xbox. Oh, sorry, an Xbox, a Nintendo, uh, and instead gets a light bright from Japan. So he's dejected again. So his dad heads him out to this tree fort that he built, which in the present day we see him show off to his daughter. And the daughter's like, hey, how did you end up getting it anyway? And he said that he had to earn it via doing other stuff after the fact. Not in a flashback, but, But the last flashback we do see is him saying Merry Christmas to his dad, because that's what the guy said. He's like, hey, have you ever even said Merry Christmas to anyone today? And he was like, nope. So he said it to his dad, and we cut to the current day right before then, where we see the dad, or the grandfather at this point, has passed away. And as the family celebrates as the movie comes to its close. So, I would say pretty tame, honestly. There is this one movie, God, I wish I had looked this up before. I forget what the exact Christmas movie title is, but it's the one with Arnold Schwarzenegger when his son wants the toy. This movie reminds me of that, but it's less of a chaotic story. This 8-Bit Christmas is a less chaotic story, and I do feel like that is something that is severely missing. I mean, our narrator, Neil Patrick Harris, says that apparently that they went through craziness to get this Nintendo, and quite frankly, it's rather tame, the entire thing. He sells stuff, and then he goes on to sell other stuff. I suppose, like, sneaking in, like, during the bus ride, but that, again, by comparison, it just seems like, I don't know, it just seems rather tame. And I don't know, I feel like that's something that's kind of missing from this movie, a little bit of that oomph to really accelerate the idea of, like, this crazy story. And, that's the reason why he even suggests even telling the story. He's like, oh, it was an intense desire. I went through this crazy ordeal, and he didn't have to fight a bunch of Santas, for example, and one of them wasn't the Big Show. um, you know, that's the scene that I vividly remember from that movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger. And, him dressing up as the doll, or the action figure, or whatever you want to call it. And, him flying in the air and all this crazy stuff. So I think of all of that, and I'm like, there's nothing in this movie that even touches any of that. And I think it's a shame. I think there is a sense of safeness to this movie that is just... It feels like a very, very safe ad for Nintendo. That's what this movie feels like. And again, I don't know what Nintendo did to get that much this, but I don't know. So yeah, pretty meh. So I'd probably give this movie like a 5 or even a 4 out of 10. Not that great. And that's my review of 8-Bit Christmas. And if you ended up enjoying this review, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also make sure to check out those links in the description. One will head you over to my Discord server, the second will head you over to my Patreon page. Any donations are greatly appreciated. Until next time, everyone, bye-bye.